Spy versus Spy. Ooh, can I be James Bond? Next on Our Sinclair. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 100th episode of Our Sinclair. Your buddy Amigo Aaron, joined as always by the one and only the Brent. It is the big 100th edition of Our Sinclair. And I swear it in just at the right time. You did. It is a bit awkward that I did 98 of these episodes with someone else. Well, 96. But we will get more into that a little bit later in the show. But yes, this is the big 100th, and this week we're going to be taking on a game that I would say is one of the most well-traveled games in the old era of gaming. I mean, this thing appeared on It is something that was on everything, yeah. And I love that because I was thinking to myself, how many games can you think of that appeared this many times on this many systems? I mean, and when you think of games that are well-traveled like this, can you think of any off the top of your head? I've got a few. The summer winter games. Yeah, those were on a lot of things. I mean, of course, you've got all your arcade clones. Those always make the rounds, depending on how simple they are. Yeah. I'm guessing you had one in mind. You wanted me to say a couple I could think of off the top of my head. Zork was on everything. Yeah. Oh, yeah. All the Infocom games got a wide appearance. You know, of course, until those went out of vogue. But I mean, those appeared on 16-bit computers and whatnot. The games that I thought about were Prince of Persia. It got shopped around quite a bit. Dragon's Lair is one that perpetually appeared in some form on a whole bunch of machines. Even if they couldn't run the proper arcade version, there was some version of Dragon's Lair that you could play. Of course, you've got, like you mentioned, you've got lots of official and unofficial arcade games like Pac-Man, Mrs. Pac-Man's Asteroids appeared on a ton of stuff. But it's funny that when you think about some games that appeared on a lot of systems, you don't necessarily think about the most popular games. Like I would say Spy vs. Spy is a game that is well-traveled, but I don't know, a ton of people are holding up the torch for this game. Well, I know it was obviously popular through many forms of media. Yeah. And that always helps because even if gamers aren't out there clamoring to get their hands on Spy vs. Spy, just the general knowledge that it exists as a property means it's going to sell more copies than it would otherwise. You might be on something there. It's funny. I was going to get into the history of this game a little bit because I'm assuming most people that would know about Spy vs. Spy would know about Mad Magazine, which is a crazy magazine. It was sort of a comedic magazine that's been published forever. I guess it's still around, and I don't know if they're still making physical copies of it. I honestly don't know. Yeah, but it's a Spy vs. Spy was a comic strip that appeared in Mad Magazine. Now, this when I looked into this, I had no idea about the backstory. I mean, I've seen the comic, obviously, right? But it's real funny how it goes. So the premise of it is you've got a black spy and a white spy, and they never talk, and they're continuously trying to kill each other, trying to get away with stuff. They're doing spy stuff. They're poisoning each other. They hit each other with cars and shoot each other and blow each other up, bombs and whatnot. That's the whole shtick. So you can imagine what it's like to do that. You got to be pretty clever, you know. So the fella that did this, that created this comic, was named Antonio Prohias. Okay. He was Cuban. He came from Cuba, and he left Cuba May 1st of 1960, 3 days before Fidel Castro's government took over and nationalized the free press. He was actually a pretty big deal in Cuba. And he had a line here that I thought was great. He talked about the success of his comic, and he said, "The sweetest revenge has been to turn Fidel's accusation of me as a spy into a money-making venture." Yeah. Because Fidel had accused this guy of being a spy, and so that he got out of there, you know. He began He began working at MAD on July 12th of 1960, and he did 241 magazine issues with Spy vs. Spy before he turned it over to someone else, and they've kept it going. And I assume it's around in some sort of form right now.
Oh, I'm sure it is. Yeah, because it's such a popular.
And this is one of those things that transcended the magazine in a lot of ways.
Well, of
Because
course.
even if you weren't into Mad Magazine, you probably knew about the spies. I don't know. I mean, they appeared. They had their own board game. Of course, they had their own video game. They had their own. They were in TV commercials. They were lampooned occasionally in certain things. It was something like I was never a big Mad Magazine reader when I was a kid. I would flip through one every once in a while, but I was always drawn to these guys because it's simple.
Yeah.
It's simple. Anyone can figure out what's going on, and it's sort of fun. It's sort of a morbid sort of fun to watch one guy perpetually try to kill another guy or maim him.
Well,
but I mean,
it's Tom and Jerry antics.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. So it was a lot of fun. These guys, by the way, just in case you have never seen Spy vs. Spy, they look. One is all in black and one is all in white, and they have these
reverse colored hats.
They have these, and they have these long
noses
that are with a point. They look quite sinister, both of them. And it's never really revealed, despite the fact that one's in black and one's in white. It doesn't necessarily make the one in black, for example, less likely to be triple evil.
No. I think they're both on the chaotic evil scale.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, but if you think about it, you wouldn't exactly peg Mad Magazine to be the source of a video game. There's not a ton of stuff going on in a Mad Magazine. You're thinking to yourself, hey, we could make a game out of this. Alfred E. Newman game or whatever. I don't think they did any other I don't think this is the only thing that came out of Mad Magazine that got games. I can't think of anything else. Maybe I could be way off base, but I can't think of anything. So it's sort of a wacky way for something to come out. And I like the fact that a guy who fled Cuba ultimately led to being heavily featured in a very well-traveled video game. It's weird how things work.
It is. Well, they also have board games and card games on Mad.
Have you ever played either one of those?
No. Probably for the best.
I bet a board game might be kind of fun, if I'm honest. Well, I guess we should just jump right in then, Brent. What do you say? With that backstory in line, we are looking at Spy vs. Spy, published by Beyond Software on the ZX and released in '85. We mentioned that this was well traveled, so we might as well just go ahead and talk about how well it traveled. This got released on so many machines, it's actually fun to go over them. So in '84, this came out in the 64, the Atari 8-bits, and the Apple II. '85 got the Amstrad and ZX. '86, you had the Sega Master System, which some people consider the quintessential version. Yeah, the Sharp X1, the NES. By the way, according to Wiki, and you can take this with a grain of salt. According to Wiki, the NES version of this sold 300,000 copies in North America alone.
That's
all right.
Probably not.
That's true. What I'm just telling you. It also had a PC-88 release in '86 and '87. That's when they cranked up the BBC Micro and Electron and these Commodore 16 and +4 versions. That was a weird year. They went kind of backtrack, and then amazingly in '89, you got an Amiga and ST version. So this crept into the 16 bits. And then you also had, in no particular order, a Game Boy, a Game Boy Color, an MSX, and an iOS version of this. So this was that's a pretty good amount of machines for this game. It also had a couple of sequels, Spy vs. Spy 2, The Island Caper, and Spy vs. Spy 3, Arctic Antics, which I have not played, but I have fun one of these days. We'll end up getting into them. So what do you do in this game? This game is a split-screen 1 to 2 player game where you if you play by yourself, you play the white spy as you are in a building, an area, a set of rooms, and you are pitted against your continual enemy, the other spy, as you try to gain the necessary items to catch a plane and leave the scene, basically. Yeah. Now, I guess I should start this by saying, because this is sort of important. Had you ever played this before?
Yeah.
Okay. Had you ever known what you were doing before?
Yes.
You did know.
Yeah.
Okay. Because a lot of people, including myself, this was one of those games you would occasionally would throw on the computer of your choice, and they're really. I haven't looked over a couple and played a few of these. There's not a ton of difference. I mean, graphically look different, but there's not a huge amount of difference.
The goal is always the same.
Right, but I mean, the game is pretty much the same on all the systems. But a lot of times we would just go around and try to hose your partner, and then not even pay much attention to the actual game.
And then you just both run out of time, and it's over.
But there's an actual game in there.
Yes.
So your mission is to escape this embassy before your time runs out. You have to find 5 things in essence. You need to find a Halliburton or a briefcase, whatever you want to call it, a suitcase, and then once you have this item, you have the ability to carry more than one thing.
More than once, yeah.
And so
quest items.
Amongst the things you have to have are a passport, money, a key, and secret plan. You have to have these 4 things. Now, as you run through this, the rooms of this embassy, you're going to come across desks, and you're going to come across pictures. You're going to come across drawers and whatnot.
Yeah.
And what you can do is you can search them. You will move and you will look and you will find something back there. Maybe you won't. And you were looking for these certain items. Now, the caveat is until you get the Halliburton, a briefcase, you're only having these one thing at a time. And so it becomes partially a memorization battle, and partially it becomes a strategic battle as to try to maybe move stuff where you want them, because you can take stuff and move it somewhere else and drop it.
Yeah, you pick it up, put it in your inventory, take it to another room, and hide it in another bookshelf or behind a picture or something.
Right. Now, these levels eventually can become multi-leveled, including not elevators, including
stairs
ladders
and
And so at that point you go multi-level. Now, of course, there's always the other spy. So what's a scoop there? Well, in 1 or 2 players, when you come across the other spy who's doing the exact same thing, he's also doing the exact same thing. When you come into a room with that spy, anything you're carrying gets deposited behind the nearest bookcase or whatnot, and then you go into like combat mode. And in combat mode, you try basically the combat in this game involves hitting your opponent with a big stick or club.
I always thought you were stabbing them, but yeah.
It's funny, in the Sega Master System version of this, you groin shot the other guy with your foot. But in this one, you've got clubs that you whack each other with. So, and then you basically, I think 7 hits will kill your opponent. Now, let's move to the other aspects of the game. You'll see a ticking timer at the top of each player's area. These timers are not in sync with each other.
No.
And what these timers are, it's how long you've got until your escape plane leaves and you're not on it. So when this timer runs out, no matter what you've got, you're done.
Game's over.
You're out.
Instant.
The timers will change depending on what you do. For example, if you get killed, you lose time.
Yes.
And your opponent does not. If you take time to set traps, we'll talk about, that takes extra time, and so you'll lose time there. So you can be doing great in this game, but run out of time because you did not find you didn't get all whatever you needed and get out the door. The other important aspect of the game are the traps, which is what we used to play without any concern for the game.
It's like setting up the mousetrap board just to watch the little man fly in the tub.
Well, did anyone ever play Mousetrap as a game? I mean, me and Luke did one time, but it was not that much fun. So, as you go through the game, you've got set items that you can use to kill your opponent effectively. Amongst them are a bomb, a spring, a bucket of water, and a gun on a string, and a time bomb.
Well, it's a bucket of water with the electricity.
Right. I said it was like it does have a little electrical symbol on it, which is weird.
It's like you got a battery and a bucket of water.
I always thought it was like a bucket of acid, but you never a bucket of water with the electricity.
No, because he does the electricity thing.
I wonder how that works. Electric. Think it's got batteries.
Yeah. Considering I just said with a battery, probably that's what I think.
So anyway, what you do as you go through the game is that you can. So, and this took a while for me to figure out. Okay, so we're on the ZX. It's a 1-button machine, which a lot of these are. Your button in the game will use the club, but what it won't do is access your menu until you double tap the button. That took a little while. I remember playing this game and have no idea. And this isn't the only system that's like that. And when you do that, it suddenly lets you access the side panel of your various items.
Yeah.
Aside from the aforementioned weapons, you've also got a map there.
Yeah.
That used to drive me nuts because I never knew how. I always saw the map pop up, and I was like, "How do you get to that?" Well, because I didn't know.
You hit the button a lot.
Yeah. Once you get over to your side area, you can negotiate your way through your options. And the map is a simple map, but it's effective. It shows where you're at in the area. It shows where your opponent's at. And that's all there is to that. And anyway, you can set these weapons. Now, you know about all these weapons. You want to explain a little bit about the strategy behind setting them, how you set them, and where they can be used?
Yeah, certain things go in certain places. So, like the spring you put behind a picture on the wall, or a bucket of water you put in the corner of a door, bombs into drawers, guns tied to doorknobs, that sort of affair.
Yeah, certain items have to be used at a door, and certain items can't be used at a door, and then the time bomb can be used anywhere, I believe. Is where that can
and the whole, it's a risk versus reward thing, right? Because it takes time. I mean, even more so than just doing the action. It takes part of your timer to set up these traps, and you have to think to yourself, if he dies from this trap, I get a time benefit. There's a time plus to me that's because of my opponent's time negative.
Right.
But you have to set the trap, which takes time, and then your opponent has to trigger that trap. And there are, a lot of calculations that go into that.
Yeah.
And it comes to, do you trap a whole room maybe? Do you only trap a room that you've also put an item in that you're kind of storing there using as kind of your home base? So, that is, in my opinion, that's the strategy of the game.
Yeah.
Because sure, you can run up on the other guy and have a big club off, right? Where you're both just hitting the button as fast as possible and hope you come out on top. Because that's how those fights always are.
Yeah.
Or you can try to set, the traps and try to get that time benefit. Personally, when I play, I never set traps. Or I will set one trap. And I will set it in the same room that I know something is in. So at least they've got a 50-50 or a 1 in 3 chance that if they find that item, they're going to get hit with whatever I set up.
Sure. And the funny thing is, with the traps, it's not that funny what happens unless you're the other guy. It's like you more often than not, you'll set off your own trap.
Well, that
happens all the time. Yeah. And so you have to know exactly where you put the stuff.
Right.
If you go lumbering in there, you'll blow yourself up.
Yeah, and that's why you can't just set. If you're trying to win, you can't just set dozens of traps because you will eventually forget where all of them are.
Yeah. I should mention that whatever item you're carrying is featured in the a little separate square on the side of the screen. And of course, if you've got the Halliburton or suitcase, it's featured there, and then you can put the stuff in it. And there, it keeps track of the important stuff at the top.
Yeah, it keeps it at the top.
The funny thing about this game is, of course, you've got the traps, but there's actually a counter to the counter here, which are like basically things to get rid of the traps that your opponent set.
Wire snippers, for example.
Yeah, you've got scissors, an umbrella, a water bucket will get rid of a bomb, and you could actually get through these traps if you've got these items. But again, this is a level of play in these games that few will probably ever dwell. And the reason I say that is, it's sort of like you said, by the time you set a trap and take the time to put the trap down, and then you have to hope he gets there and hope you don't hit it. Often I got to the point after playing this week to where I would just go around and try to find as much as I could. Even if I got hit with something.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And I tried to keep a mental idea, okay, and I had to use the map a lot. Finding out how to use the map was a big plus because you can at least get to your bearings. The game does a good job, in my opinion. Listen, this is a game that has very little the music, zilch. It has sound effects. It's not what I would call graphically beautiful. It's good enough.
Oh, I thought this very well suit the spectrum.
This isn't my favorite. It worked okay. You don't need much given what you're doing here. Yeah. But and this was in line with the other version. But what this game does, it does quite accurately capture the spirit of the comic strip. which not a lot of games, and that's the hardest thing to do is to sort of capture what the essence of the comic is. But I mean, this is the comic. These two idiots
It's exactly
going
what
around
happens.
doing dumb crap for an idiot goal. There are some places where this comes up short, and the one if you start this up on the specky right away, once you go through your options, now I will say it does give you the option to change the IQ level of your opponent.
Yeah.
It changes the level of play, and you can also you can redefine your keyboard keys. Thank God. That's always a plus. But this game starts you out, and you're pretty much but you're pretty much beside the other spy. And when you're playing the computer, and he's on you, and it's not a good way to start anyone to learn a game, which I would call a more convoluted or complicated than normal game. A lot of people, again, when I played this back in the day, it was always just to beat the tar out of the other guy and never to actually win the game. So when you look at this from a game where you're trying to win, that's not the best way to start by having your guy in there. I also had trouble just effectively always entering that menu. It's funny when you're in the middle of this game, it's hurry up and wait. There are times where you've got plenty of time. And then you've also got times where this guy's on top of you over and over and over. Another aspect that I wasn't too keen on was like when you get killed, I mean, it takes a while to get you back in. Which, I mean,
I think that's fair.
But, I mean, your guy turns into the angel and the whole 9 yards, which that's okay. And I will say the one thing they did built in is that when one guy gets killed, the other guy laughs, which I thought was a nice touch. He gets a good hearty chuckle, which again that happens all the time in the comic strip. What did you think about this as a player?
Well, there's two ways. There's two ways to look at this, right?
All right, yeah.
Is the game good, right?
Yeah.
And is it good for the spectrum? And I want to tackle that last question first.
All right.
Is it good for the spectrum? It's good enough.
Yeah.
This is not the primo way to play Spy versus Spy. And when you have something that is on dozens of consoles, right? And you in a modern setting, you want to play the best version of that game that's out there. Unless you just have a nostalgia, for something. You want to play the best version. This is not the best version. However, let's look at it from, the 1980s view, right? Where this might have been the only way you could play it.
Right.
It's fine. You've got it. It does everything it needs to do, and it presents itself very well. Would it have been better with more buttons? Yes. That's why anything that has multi buttons is superior.
In this case, that's certainly not a deal breaker.
No, because you get used to it. You get used to it. So we've tackled that. Is it good? Is it good enough on the spectrum? Yes, it's good enough on the spectrum. Now, is it a good game? This is one of those great dividing games. I personally enjoy this game because it is so different. Because it takes the source material that is Spy versus Spy and implements it so well into a game, right?
All right. They
could have went a million different ways with this, and they could have completely cheesed it out, but they went and did something fairly unique without compromising the source material. Do I think that the game is, hard to pick up for newbies? Absolutely. And normally for games like this, when you're working with, a popular property, that's the last thing that you want to do. You want to have something that is dumbed down to the dumbest levels.
Yeah.
That just, is easily consumed. They did not do that for this game. This is a complex game. It has complex ideas going on.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, it works to the benefit of the game. It takes a lot of risks in a time where a lot of risks were taken. You would not say, I don't think you could get a AAA developer in modern times to take a risk like this on a popular property. It'd be like taking Barbie and making like a Mortal Kombat game. Well, it just ain't going to happen.
This is more in line with the comic though than that would have been.
Yeah, that's true.
This is when this game came up on the list to play when the selection committee picked it. I was actually pleased and excited, and I'll tell you why. This is a game that I've never understood up until this week because I never
Okay.
cared. That's the one thing I like about this show. Like I play. No, seriously. It basically it makes me play stuff that I wasn't that interested in. I mean, I saw this game all over the place, and much like a lot of other people, I had a cursory look at it. I screwed around with it. It was weird. It didn't make any sense. The controls were weird. I just said, "Out of the heck with that," and never tried it again. Like I knew about it, but I didn't care. And I knew when this came up, I'm like, I'm going to sit down and read the rules
And actually
and
learn it.
figure out
Yeah.
what this game is. And now that I have, I watched a great video where a guy compared the different versions of this. And one thing he mentioned, I'm going to pair it here, is that when you look at the comments, and I noticed this even before I watched the video, a lot of people talk about this game and they're like, I never figured out what this game was. Or some people killed the game. There's no game here. It's garbage. And you can understand why, because when you first start the game, you get that feeling. Like I played it once before I looked at any documentation. I was like, I hate this. What is this? You've got to. It's your classic example because you're right. They captured the spirit and the fun of the comic strip quite nicely.
Yeah.
The design on this was quite clever. I should mention, by the way, that of course this was ported over, and I didn't go into any of the details on that. This was ported over by a couple fellows who did some porting. You know what I mean? Back in the day. And the funny thing is, we can look at who performed the conversion of this. They were labeled as Tag and the Kid. All right, that's who they. But I found their real names on Moby were Anthony Tagloni and Malcolm Helen. And most of this, what they did wasn't on the ZX. Tagloni did Superman, but he also did. Listen to the stuff he did on like the C64. He did Mooncrest. He did Lords of Midnight. He did Deathscape. He did Shogun Total War on Windows. He was the big guy behind that. So Tagloni ended up having a pretty good career. Malcolm Hellion, he did, or Hellion's better, but Helen, he did Lords of Midnight and on the C64, and he did some stuff on the Amiga, including he was involved in Grimblood, Space Cutter, F-19. F-19, a big title on the Amiga. So these guys were pretty talented fellows that put this thing together. Something else you've got to consider. I looked up what this went for when it was released. This was a 10-pound, 9-pound 99p game when it was released, but it quickly went down to budget price, £2 99p. Again, they were that's a heck of a bargain. Because the fact that you have an opponent that's an AI, and I heard different people talk about the opponent. Like I heard a lot of people say that the opponents were real dumb. Like I put on the dumbest opponent, and he would often win. I mean, he would win a lot. And we should mention, how do you win? We didn't get into that. Once you gather up all your components in your Halliburton, there's a door you'll find that has an airport and two airplanes on it, and that takes you to the airport. And that's how you win. You can choose whether this door stays hidden until the end of the game or not, and I can see both ways. If you wanted to make it more fun to have to go around trying to find the door. One of the things about this game that is also clever is the stuff that's behind the scenes that they did. For example, if one guy is crushing the other spy, okay, and you can tell what your opponent's got. I mean, because you can look down at his screen, you can see what he's got.
Not to.
Well, I mean, I think that's sort of built in. And so what you can do is, if your opponent's killing it, he's got a halberd with a bunch of stuff on it, you go after him.
Yeah.
That's when you go hand to hand.
And you just steal
because whenever you go into the room with him, everything he has is instantly stashed in the nearest gimmick. Everything you have is gone too. But you don't have as much.
Yeah.
If you go in there and pummel him, you can take everything. And now you're in the lead. Which again is sort of in line with the wackiness of the comic strip. And if you're the guy who gets, the other spy steals all his stuff, you can stay there and fight him, or you might have to just run away and just give up your stuff so you don't, if you're not faring too well in the fight, then come back at it. So it gives you, even at a lot of these games, you get so far behind, you're boned.
Right.
But this is a game where they've sort of rubber banded it by gameplay. I mean, really, if you think of it, it's actually quite a clever concept in gameplay.
It can also be abused, because if you have nothing, and let's say the other guy's ready to win, you just stand in the room with the door to the exit. because then you can't.
Well,
you
that's
at least have one more chance to fight, and that's why they have the hidden exit.
I was going to say that's why the hidden exit's there, and I think the hidden exit's is a good angle for this game because it does add, especially if you're a more advanced player.
Yeah,
it will give you a little more of a leg up on it.
And this is also one of the very few games where this is true. I would much rather play the computer than another person.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Because when you play another person, strategies like I just mentioned become the norm.
Yeah.
Why even search for stuff? Just wait till the other guy gets everything and takes it. Where the computer doesn't do that, the computer is always trying to achieve the common goal. And if you're playing the same way, you're just trying to achieve the common goal. It's fun to see that the jousting effect that has. You might have a part, he has a part, but you're still looking for the suitcase to actually gather everything up. That it becomes more fun for me that way. When you play two people, man, it's just, especially finding two people that know how to play the game.
Well, I mean, if me and you were to play it, I think we have a pretty game. We should probably try this somewhere down the line. Maybe this would be great
Thanks
for
for
Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But I like the hiding the exit door, but also you got to remember you're not just going to roll in and wait for the computer to gather everything and go in there and beat its brains out. The computer's no slouch when it comes to combat.
You can set it up so you have a really good advantage.
How do you do that?
Well, because all of the rooms have doors, just wire up both doors with gimmicks.
Oh yeah.
And so they have to come in with snippers.
Them, yeah.
Right, and then if you do that, you know if they're going to come from the top or the side, which is usually how these rooms are set up, right?
Yeah.
And then you just stand by the door, and as soon as they walk in, if you land the first punch, you have a really good chance that you're going to finish him before he can finish you, or run away.
But still, that's a lot of strategy to be involved in this.
Well, and it's also crap strategy. You don't play like that.
The thing is, if
that's no fun.
The good thing is by hiding that escape door, that nullifies a good chunk of that.
It does put a lot of it.
You can understand why they give you. The good thing is the options there.
Yes.
Because early on, you don't want to hide the doors, so people can figure out what they're doing. Also, if you're playing with a less experienced guy, maybe give him a little bit of help. Maybe you're letting him get a little bit further, and you crush him at the end. Or maybe you're just the kind of guy that likes to crush suckers like you.
And, of course, there is a alternative way to try to play this, right? Because the timers are a really big deal. Yeah. And you can run – just because you run your opponent's time out doesn't mean that you win. They just can't win. You still have to find all the items.
Yeah.
But there is some strategy in saying, if I can get 4 or 5 minutes off this guy's clock – right?
Yeah.
Even if he gathers all the items, I can just run him around until he dies, pick it all up, and leave. So that does kind of lean towards more, well, I'm going to plant a few more traps than I normally would. I don't play that way. I go hardcore into trying to find the stuff as quick as possible and get out, maybe plant 1 or 2 traps. But the option at least is there that you can play like that.
You know what might be fun? I was just thinking about this. If there was a game of this where you got your console and not the other guys, it was an online version, and you could have maybe 4 or 5 people playing in a large, basically take this concept and expand it. Now, that might be kind of a fun thing to do.
Well, they actually have. Man, I should have looked up the name of this because I knew I was going to bring it up on this show. There is a game where it's sort of like this, but not really. One person plays as a spy, and the other person plays as a counter spy. But instead of both of you running around the same environments, you're in an environment where the thing is happening, and the other guy's watching with a sniper rifle.
Yeah.
And he gets one shot to shoot and kill you. But you have to figure out which one is the human player. And you have tasks like, you have to maybe get a book, communicate with another spy, seduce the good guy, that sort of thing.
Is this a Steam game?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. I'm going to look into that. Did you, just while we're thinking about it, did you ever play the sequels to this?
No. What's the point?
Maybe one of the, I don't know. Maybe they did some stuff that we would enjoy. I've never cared about the sequels until right now.
Well, for me, part of the charm of this game is it being what it did the first time. Yeah. Once they made money off of it and they could make sequels. I mean, I've never played the sequels. They might be the best thing ever.
They're very similar.
all the problems that I have with the game.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling it's just different, more in different traps with updated graphics. But for me, part of the charm of this, part of the fun of this game is they took that first risk. They made something so unique the first time. Once they saw it worked and they made more of them, it's not really my
You got to
thing.
give them credit too, because they actually, of all the wacky properties to pick, aside from the fact that the combat and the premise of the game work for the comic strip, there's also sort of a minimalist. The comic strip's not what I would call like rich and deep art and the background.
No,
and so
yeah, I agree.
even that part of it actually works pretty well.
You have your iconic characters. They have that the very iconic look.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see these guys, regardless if they're drawn a little differently or from a different person, they all have that same look that is just instant. It's instant. You know that's what they're going for.
Yeah. I was interested to see how this would review. It's funny listen, a game doesn't get ported this widely, and especially over a series of 5 years.
Yeah.
Unless someone's buying it. Okay, so we know this was a good seller.
Yeah.
And so I wondered how this would review, and it reviewed pretty well. Sinclair usually gets 100%.
Oh, it's not that good.
Computer Gamer gave it 100%. Crash gave it a 93. CBG gave it a 90, and Sinclair Programs gave it a 71. Those are sterling scores.
Ridiculously, I guess the check cleared big time.
No, I think they probably
100%. Aaron,
you understand something though, Brent. This is a simpler time where this is a pretty multifaceted. How many multiplayer games are going to give you this sort of depth? Not that many.
I know. I think to give a game 100%, it's got to be completely flawless, and it can't do it with one button.
We did get a review in. Our good buddy Pajako chimed in, but he said, I've tried to play this game over the years a number of times, and really I just can't get on with it. It is a great concept, but I find the game very clunky and difficult to play, if I'm honest. I keep hoping one day I'll just click with it, but sadly not this time. The Specky version does a good job representing the game, but it's a little dull to look at. However, with limitations, the machine developers did a good job with the sound, and it moves at a good clip. And I will say there are sound effects, occasionally, yeah. But in an age where any system library is at your fingertips, Specky is not the one to play this on if you want to play the best spy versus spy version. I think you mentioned that as well.
The NES is where I played it, so.
Yeah. Overall, though, I enjoyed this one.
As a kid.
I did have a chance to look this up on eBay, the Brent. And this is selling, brother. eBay,
really?
There were people asking. I always like when people try to get a lot of money for cassettes. But every once in a while they find one. But this seems like it'd be ultra common. I saw people.
If it sold as much as they said it did.
I saw people trying to get between $21 and $30 for this. And that's a lot of people were selling it. I saw some sold for $10, $6, $17, $10 again, and $2. So someone sold this cassette for $17. Not bad, man.
I guess.
I'm just saying, that's not bad at all. So
kudos to that person. I'm glad you found the game that you wanted to pay $17.
Very good. So as we move towards the end here, I wanted to talk a little bit about this being our 100th episode of Our Sinclair. Me and you talked before because we are involved in several shows.
Yes.
And you come to these milestones more, and it's funny, you come to them more and they mean less as you, depending on, because we've been around for a while. And this show was one that me and Boat started it's been quite a while ago. It was right after ARG, I think, kicked off. And then we went in hiatus for a while with it, but brought it back. And because we both really love the Specky. And it's the system where it's always a solid title, but the titles are really shoot the gambit, and there's so many that you can run a million shows, like this. I was looking over, of course you weren't here for these early shows, but do you know what our very first Our Sinclair episode was on?
If I had to make a guess, I would say Jet Set Willie.
No, it was Bruce Lee.
Oh,
of all things. I look back. We really started out hot because our second episode, which is still one of my all-time favorite games on any system, which is Chaos. It's amazing to me that there was a time that before me and my son knew what that was, because that game has been perpetually, it's on my kid's phone and mine. And we also have the Steam version, the new updated version, which is awesome. I love Chaos. I don't know if have you ever played Chaos?
Yes, of course.
I can't remember if you played it or not. But we went through. I was just looking through the list of stuff that we played over the years. I had a couple things that stuck out to me. Daley Thompson, the Catholics. I'm a big fan of that sort of thing. It's funny, a couple of these I remember because they would episodes where me and Boat would get in a big fight. In fact, when we were having, there were a couple of episodes where Boat was real angry. Boat's perpetual missaying of attic attack, which is spread across multiple shows now, with people calling it a tick attack, which drives me bananas. So he ruined that for a lot of people. I've liked some of the newer, like we played some of the new stuff. We played some of the old stuff. You're right. We did play Jetpack. We did play what? We did play Manic Miner. We did play all those sorts of games that you would expect us to play. But we'd also, the good thing about having a selection committee is that now you're playing stuff like Grand National, the horse racing game. I mean, but we got to learn a lot about horse racing in that. I thought that was cool. We also we've played every sort of racing game, biking game, all sorts of crazy games over the years. It's a good time playing all the games. And you came in, and your first game was just. Do you remember because you took over for Boat a couple times last year? Do you remember what you were playing?
I don't.
You
No.
don't remember? You don't have that stuff burned into your retinas?
I get caught up to the major leagues so often and sent back to the minors just as often. I can't keep track of it.
Also, I want to mention that we also, there are some other things I wanted to mention. We played some bad games on this show, some real bad games. The one that comes to mind was like Transformers. Was I thought was not that good, but there were plenty of those. I'm trying to think of the name of this game. We played this game. It was so wacky that it came with its own like soundtrack. Did you ever watch an episode we did? Somebody on the chat will remind me what that was. I mean, it was a real wild game where you actually listened to music along with where you played the game. Yeah.
Are you talking about the one from Brazil?
No, it wasn't from Brazil, although that was good too. Deus Ex Machina, that's the one.
Deus Ex.
What a crazy game that was. I thought that was a real, that's one I think about quite a bit whenever I'm thinking about the things we did. The game wasn't the best, but the concept behind it was grand, So, since Bo was involved in so many of these episodes, I mean, almost all of them, I asked Bo to send a little clip in to talk to everybody about his experiences on here. Brent, you want to run the clip?
Here it comes.
Guys, listen. Our Sinclair, 98 episodes that I did with you guys, me and Aaron. Listen, we have done it all. Soared through the skies of Jet Set Willie. We've duked it out with the baddies and Target Renegade. I still don't understand sort of the misplaced affection for that game from you guys in the UK. We solved the mysteries of The Hobbit. We've done everything you can do in those colorful worlds of the ZX Spectrum. But, we've done more than that. We've discovered the heart of British culture. And by that, I mean we learned about snooker. We learned about Jockey Wilson. These are the things that tie the nation of England together. And so, as I step away from the mic, as I step away from Our Sinclair, I can't help but look back and just thank you all for helping us choose the games that defined a nation. And I also want to say a special thank you to the Brent. If I had to pick one person that had fresh energy and just boundless enthusiasm for the platform, it would be Hurricane Zone Brent Dowdy. I am confident that he will take our show and bring it to levels that are never before seen in the history of podcasting about British computers from people in the United States. So, dear listeners, thank you for allowing me to be part of the first 98 episodes of Our Sinclair. And thank you to the Brent for carrying the torch onward. And of course, the biggest thank you of all to one Amigo Aaron for being really, I mean, if you had to choose an American ambassador for a UK computer, could you think of anybody more willing, more potent than Amigo Aaron? Guys, enjoy the episode. Rewind tape and press play.
Thank you, Boat, for chiming in. He really does love this show, and he loves the Sinclair. We still play stuff on it all the time, and Boat's going to start joining me for some of my live streams on Friday nights, sometime in the not too distant future, probably after he gets back from going to the cave.
I was going to say, I don't know when he's going to fit that in.
Hey, listen, I want to announce that that next time around on Our Sinclair in a few weeks, we will be doing episode 101, Their Finest Hour.
Yes.
As was chosen by our game selection committee. If you're interested in hooking up on the game selection committee or just joining us at Patreon, head over to Patreon and give it a shot. We are there, Amigos Retro Gaming. We'd love to have you in. Our Sinclair, our whole host of shows. If you're interested in that sort of thing, we'd be more than happy to have you come around like these fine folks who are supporting the show. We appreciate everybody. Listen, the game selection committee, I love that because they keep us frosty.
Yeah.
If we're just going to pick, me and Brent would just pick arcade ports.
No, I certainly would not pick arcade ports.
It's great to have the support and encouragement from all the folks in chat on the Patreons. We appreciate you guys very much. And so that will be coming up in a couple weeks. But next week, Brent, we're back in the ARG saddle, and we're going to be looking at the Computer presents the Lynx. The Lynx.
Yeah, we sure are.
This isn't the Atari Lynx. This is the one from Computer.
That's the one.
Immediately after the show, we've got to find a way to play games on the Computer Lynx. It should be a lot of fun to figure it out, but we usually find a way. That's faux show.
Have we ever had a show where we didn't play the games?
We've had shows where we had to change the show because we couldn't find an emulator, but it only happened to me once or twice.
Yeah.
Very rare. So I have a feeling it's normal when someone picks one of these wacky computers, then there's an emulator for it. And by the way, this is where I love going into the wacky zone for ARG. I love that. Like a few weeks ago when we did the Atom. I love that.
And that wasn't even close to the wacky zone.
I love kit computers and stuff, so I'm looking forward to learning about this. And it looks like a pretty good little system there, the Lynx.
One more thing, Aaron, I want to bring up.
Yeah.
We are on the cusp. Actually, it will be tomorrow that the Amigos Retro Gaming YouTube channel will have been open for 3,000 days.
Really? Weird.
3,000 days tomorrow for the YouTube channel. That's a long time, folks.
What a weird stat that is. Where'd you come across that?
I was like, I wonder how long the channel's been up. And then I said, whoa, we're real close to 3,000 days.
It is.
And then that was it.
We just had our first video go on 100,000 views. And that's how long it took right there. Of course, that video came out last year, but still.
One view every 3 days.
Hey, I want to mention, we got a couple things upcoming real quick as the crow flies. Every Friday in October, we'll be doing the Conversations from the Dark Side show. Me, Rob Flack O'Hara. We completed our first show this past Friday, where we talked about TV horror. These are made for TV horror. It was a lot of fun, and those are available if you're interested on the Amigo Stream Team channel. I also want to mention that coming up early next month, we'll be back to BGW Wrestling. I'll have more information on that when it comes close. And then lastly, Brent, we're not all that far, about a month and a half away from Thanksgiving.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
You want to just briefly touch on what that is?
Thanksgiving is our channel-wide event that Aaron and I put on the day after Thanksgiving. It's on a Friday. We usually run it between 8 and 12 hours. I'm not sure how long it's going to be this year. Kind of depends on what else going on in our lives otherwise.
Yeah.
But it's just a little show where we sit down, we play some games, and it's just a way to say thanks to all the folks out there that have given money throughout the year, either to us, to charity, to say thank you for all of the nice messages and gestures that we've been given and
Or
the
the
gifts
lack
that
of
we've
mean
been
ones.
given. To be nice around us, you just have to not be mean.
Yeah, that's all we ask. I always enjoy Thanksgiving, and it's usually last year was one of our most viewed events.
Yeah.
Stunningly. So, and this
But-
year I think we're going to crank it up more because it's a lot easier than it was then.
Yeah.
So it should be a lot of fun.
And it's not a sub drive.
No,
It's not, give us a bunch of money. It's not, let's
Although,
give
feel
money
free.
to charity. I mean, we're not going to stop you, but
Yeah.
that's not the point. The point is just to have something fun for those in the U.S. for the day after Thanksgiving. You just want to sit around, recover from the food coma you're in.
Yeah.
And for us to try to be entertaining and just
we'll
give
try
a little back.
We'll try to be entertaining. I wouldn't hold your breath. That's all we got this week, Brent. Any final thoughts?
No.
We're out of here. Take it easy, everybody. And remember, rewind tape.
And press play.
Bam.